Welcome to VGK Today, presented by MGM Rewards, a daily podcast bringing you an inside look at the Vegas Golden Knights' 2023 Stanley Cup playoff run. I'm Justin Russo with the Golden Knights on Saturday, June 3rd, and the day has finally arrived. Tonight at 5 p.m. from the Fortress, it's Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Final between the Vegas Golden Knights and the Florida Panthers. These two teams are ready to go, and so too are their entire fan bases, both looking to capture their first ever Stanley Cup. Before we get into things today, I want to let you know about all the fun happening later at T-Mobile Arena and Toshiba Plaza before the game. Today, of all days, is a great one to get down to Toshiba Plaza because early at 2:45 p.m., Marshmello will perform for free to fans on the plaza. You do not need a ticket to the game to attend. All you need is to get down there and have a good time. We're also going to have Revolt tattoos back at the plaza for the first two games of the series and some custom skywriting with some fun messages ahead of Game 1. And if you don't have a ticket to the game, well, you can simply stick around on Toshiba Plaza as there will be a watch party outside the arena for both home games to start the series, including today, of course, for Game 1. Again, the free Marshmello concert begins at 2:45 p.m., but you can come as early as 2 p.m., as that's when things officially kick off on Toshiba Plaza. Well, ahead of Game 1, there is a lot to unpack and analyze before the puck gets dropped, so today we turn things over to Brian McCormack, who sat down with NHL analyst Billy Jaffe to do just that.
Brian McCormack on VGK Today, and this is a Stanley Cup Media Day edition of VGK Today as we're joined by NHL Network analyst and Sports USA broadcaster Mr. Billy Jaffe. And Billy, thanks for taking a few minutes before things get going for Game 1.
Pleasure to sit and talk hockey. Get a little Media Day meal, right? And get ready for the Stanley Cup. Media Day is always a long day, but it's always a fun day. You get to see a lot of people that you haven't seen in a long time.
You show up at Media Day and you're thinking about, okay, what players are you going to hear from? What storylines are we going to learn about? But on the other side of being able to hang out as much as I have today, there's a bit of a convention feel for it, too. Every media person that you see in the NHL world is here today, and lots of meeting and greeting going on.
Yeah, and, you know, for many of us, it's an opportunity to, if we haven't seen each other in a while, it's a great way to, it's a great way to reconnect, and we sit down and you BS and you have a good time, right? And you're like, yeah, how you been, this, all that stuff. But then hockey's the connectivity, the underlying thing, not even underlying, the overlying thing that brings us all together. And it's fun. You get to meet people, like I get to meet you, and it's great. I've been very fortunate. I don't know how many I've done now, but between conference finals and Stanley Cup, it's been a good run, and it's always fun. It's funny, you're always like, all right, you repack for the Stanley Cup, and you're like, okay, and it's big travel usually, right? And this year's no different. And you're like, okay, here we go again. And then you're, not that you're dreading it by any stretch, but you're like, it's a lot of prep, right? And then you get on the plane and you're like, okay, here we go. It's good. And then you get to the arena and you're like, all right, game on, baby. Let's get after the cup.
And especially in your position, broadcasting games and the days in between games, you're talking hockey all the time, but it's such a long journey from the start of the playoffs to the Stanley Cup Final. And that's if you're invested in your own team. If you're trying to cover the entire league, I imagine you mentioned all the storylines and the prep work. You're probably recalibrating that all the time. 2 weeks go by and it's, okay, I thought I might need to have a little bit more for Boston and Toronto. I'm not going to need that anymore. Now I'm focusing on these guys a little bit more.
Exactly right. And I cover the Boston Bruins. I do almost all of their games for Nesson. And so obviously you get fixated or really, intensified on your team. And obviously the Bruins had quite a disappointing performance in round one. But then I go, so I call it hockey stupid sometimes, or, because I'm so focused on hockey, but even more intense on the Bruins. And I'm like, all of a sudden after that round, I'm like, I got to remember now the Bruins were out. I was thinking I'd keep working for them. Now I'm like, all right, I'm going back to NHL Network, and I've got 8 teams left that I got to figure out. Thankfully, I knew the Florida Panthers because I'd seen them for 7 games. But no, there's great storylines. There's what I always look for, and a little tangent here is, there's always the normal standard storylines that are important, right? But I always find, and I learned this very early in my career, and I know this sounds kind of obvious and cliche, but I had to hear it. I once had a GM say to me, hey, you know what? Bring the facts, do it, but tell me something I don't know. And it seems obvious, right? But when I heard it as a young just falling into the hockey broadcasting world after having played but never broadcast. He's like, just tell me something I don't know. That's what we're all looking for. And I took that to heart. And so I always try and find one little nugget here or there that maybe somebody hasn't heard before. And if you do that, I think you're successful. So that's what that's what I'll do tonight. I'll have a nice meal at one of these, 3,000 restaurants here in Vegas. But then I'll figure out, I'll go inside stuff and I'll make some calls and I'll find out, maybe tell me something about somebody we didn't know before.
And you know what else is great? We're talking to Billy Jaffe. When you're working with hockey players, I think more so than other athletes, sometimes we laugh about how robotic they can be when the camera's on to get pucks in deep and stick to systems. But when the cameras are off, it's a very conversational and low ego player that you're typically going to encounter. So when you're looking for those nuggets, when you're just shoulder to shoulder chatting with a guy, I'm sure today, again, you're going to learn a lot from players players you've been covering for a while, that there's always something new and there's an openness, especially when they're talking to a hockey person like yourself.
There is, but you have to earn their trust. I think that goes for life in general, but especially I think pro athletes, and really where they say, hey, if I tell you, it's not if I tell you something. Look, they're going to tell you something off the record. You better not. But on the other end, just to get that kind of information that we think is harmless, but as you say, the guys don't normally share. Just to get that, you've got to earn their trust. That hey, if I tell them that, I like this or I like, it's going to come out the right way. And so, no, I love sitting down in the room afterwards with guys, just BSing with them and, asking. The great example was before Game 1 of the Carolina-Florida series that I worked. I was there in the tunnel outside the Canes locker room, and I was just working on getting ready for arrival interviews. And Brent Burns was there doing his sticks, and he brought 3 out. And I've known Brent for years, but not like, not best buddies, but acquaintances. That's about it. And I just said to him, what flex are you using now? Because the way that sticks have changed.
Yeah.
Everybody's gone from high to low for more torque and all that. And he said, no, I don't change. I'm using 130 or 135. I'm like, holy smokes. I said, I haven't heard, except for Chara, who used like 155. It's like a redwood tree that Chara used to use.
It's an aluminum bat, right?
Yeah, it was unbelievable. Like he says, no, you know what? I've got my reasons. I don't like to change this, that. And you know what? That little stuff right there, I think, is hockey broadcaster gold, because it tells you a little. Maybe you only use it once, but it just not only does it show that you're doing your work, but it gives the fan, the listener, something a little different where they're like, oh, I always thought guys now were going to 85. Even a guy like Ovechkin used to use 100 and whatever, and I think he's down into the 90s now or whatever. So anyways, those are the kind of things I look for.
And things change. As a guy who used to play hockey, I used to use a Naslin curve. I have no idea what that would be these days.
I don't think it's around anymore.
I'll have to do more shopping. We're with Billy Jaffe. Let's start to look at the series that we're prepping for. And I think it's an interesting dichotomy. A fan who has not been following on closely, or a non-hockey fan, would say, okay, we've got a 1 versus 8. But on the Vegas side, you have a team that won the Western Conference, but I didn't think necessarily got the respect is too strong of a word, but no one was looking at them as world beaters coming into this playoffs. I feel like we heard more about what kind of run Edmonton can go on. They didn't get the same kind of swagger respect that 1 seeds often do. And on the other side, you have a Florida Panthers team that is an 8th seed, and you are what your record says you are, but we're also expected to do much more coming into this season, and maybe they hit their stride at the right time. So I don't know if 1-8 is a fair surface representation of what we're about to see.
Probably not. I couldn't agree with you more. So Florida, having won President's Trophy last year, didn't flicker out like the Bruins did in round 1, but only made it to round 2 and got beat pretty good in round 2 by Tampa in the previous year. But because there was a lot of unknown about them, and there was so much inconsistency to their game, so much inconsistency all year long until March, really. I mean, really, just blatant inconsistent. That is the old saying. That was the only thing they were consistently good at, was being inconsistent for a long time. Then they figure it out, and so they get in, and they're not a typical 8 seed. They've got really an interesting group of players there, having watched them in the last series. And so a lot of people are looking at them as kind of the darling, so to speak, that we all love an underdog, right? Yeah. Everybody loves the sports underdog. And people are saying, look, I'm raising my hand. I know this isn't a video, but it's an audio medium that we're doing right now, but I'm raising my hand. I picked them to lose each series that they were in, right?
They're a David that's beaten 3 Goliaths at this point.
Exactly. And so they get that. So, but you look at them, and the truth is about them too, their leader, their best player, is Tkachuk, right? But their leader, Sasha Barkov, who's been there for a long time, he's incredibly quiet. Yeah. He's incredibly understated. He's a big man. He's a hell of a hockey player. He's awesome. But he doesn't resonate with people. And, like, he's not as much as he is a superstar, he's not treated like that. And so I think that's kind of how the team kind of gets looked at as well. And with regard to the Vegas Golden Knights, they didn't get as much love because a lot of people kept saying Colorado's going to be okay when they get everybody back, which they never did. And kudos to Seattle for really stepping up. That was fun. And you're right, Edmonton has the Uber stars. They've got Mr. McEverything in McDavid, and then the second coming, so to speak, in Draisaitl, right? And so that got all the attention, the media attention. And I think that helped Vegas, though. I do. Because Vegas, of almost all teams, and I think you could say this of Florida, maybe this is why we're sitting here talking about these two teams, Vegas, by not really having to have the hype and all that, they were able to play to their identity, what they are. They didn't try to be something that they aren't. We've seen it a few games here or there. We hear from Bruce Cassidy when the team doesn't do this, doesn't do that, But when they are on their game, they're structured, shot suppression, especially second shot suppression type game, and get their pace going up front, their depth, their forward lines, we know how good they are.
With Billy Jaffe, and you've mentioned, of course, your work with Nesson and being around the game as long as you have. Bruce Cassidy well. Sometimes it might be a cliche to say that, that's a team that personifies their coach, or that their coach's personality transfers to the way the team plays. But with Bruce Cassidy, everything is so calm and methodical and structured that it kind of does feel that when you hear him speak, it translates very well to the way his team performs.
I agree. And his structure is, he's an awesome coach. He's an awesome coach. And his structure is key. Now, you can say a lot of that, about that a lot of teams. They have their structure. But, and by the way, he'll admit this, and I'm sure he has before. He in Boston, when he took over for Claude Julien, he didn't really change much in the D zone from what Claude Julien had done because he had coached in Providence. He saw it work. He liked it. He appreciated it. He knew that the players liked it. So my point is, this is something that he's done for a while, and now he had to bring it here, and it's translated to obviously to a lot of success. And his system works, his structure works, and you're seeing a real Bruce Cassidy team. When you're talking, how many goalies have they used this year here now? Five, yeah. Right? I mean, that's kind of proof in the pudding, right there. That when it's the attention to his style, his structure, his details is taken because of the way he can relate it to the guys and do that well, then that's Bruce Cassidy to a T right there. He's a fantastic coach. He always has been.
This is a series that sets us up with both teams. The Stars have played like stars. Matthew Tkachuk has been terrific and is also showing that he's got the stones for the big moment. On the VGK side, everyone was so curious what Jack Eichel was going to look like in his first playoff performance, and he's looked fantastic throughout and now has a chance to make his mark on a Stanley Cup Final. I know that's something a lot of people were talking about today. Yeah,
and rightfully so. We all, as much as we like underdogs in this sports world of ours, we also love stars, right? And they get a lot of attention. That's why they're stars. Matthew Tkachuk has been... He has been, it's not, what's the word I'm looking for? He's been awe-inspiring, really. I mean, he's not the prettiest player at all. He is just a holy smokes, as you said, the stones, the cojones, whatever term you want to use and keep it clean enough. He's got it. He's got the gusto. And it's no joke, right? Like what he brings to the ice. And, what I've really loved about his game, right, is how during the regular season, he took a lot of penalties, and sometimes you'd be like, that's not a great penalty. Oh, that's a little too much, Matt. Come on. And he's dialed that back. And he's leading the league now in the playoffs of penalties drawn by the opponent. Now, that's probably because he's around the puck a lot. And second of all, because he pisses you off a lot too, right? But he's not taking that many penalties. And so that says to me, smarts. His hockey sense is sublime. It's excellent. Jack's looked great too. You know better than me. You've seen it more. It took him a little bit to get going, but you can make the argument it took the team, a little.
Sure. He mentioned today, he's like, well, game one against Winnipeg, I was a little nervous, and the entire VGK squad looked a little bit like that game one of round one, but that melted away quick.
Right, and I think I remember texting Bruce Cassidy much earlier in the season when Jack was doing, remember how great start that he had? And I just asked him. I asked because I was doing NHL Network stuff, and Bruce talked about how appreciative, but also how much Jack respected both ends of the ice. He's been our best 200-foot player. He's been great in his own zone. He's doing this, he's doing that. He's working angles while he's doing everything, right? And then I think, that's hard to keep up all season long. A few guys can do that. Barkov can. Bergeron can, right? Those kind of guys. Kopitar, phenomenal player. Jack's still getting that, but what I've loved about his game lately is how he's back to that again. How effective, responsible, and impactful he's been in both zones. And I've watched Jack since he's been in college at BU for that short term. But I just love the low stride, right? And when he gets going and the arms are moving and the jersey's flapping a little bit, you're still seeing that. But you're seeing him work his backside off as much in the D zone, which is so important.
With Billy Jaffe, who's going to work this series for NHL Network and also for Sports USA on the radio, you worked the Carolina-Florida series, as you mentioned. I know one of the storylines we're curious about is rest is good. How much rest is too much rest? I believe Game 4 in Carolina was May 23rd, 24th, a while ago already. Yeah. Is there such thing as too much rest? And even if that is a thing, does it necessarily extend beyond Game 1?
Well, the Anaheim Ducks in 2003, when you were much younger, I don't know if you remember that series, and I would argue that they had too much rest, but I believe they were 9 games. It was the 10th day in between games, like they had 9 full days off. Yeah. And they would argue that they lost their momentum. Giguère was still great in that series. He was MVP, right? But they never really got their rhythm going. I think they were still mighty then, by the way.
They were.
Okay.
Mighty and maroon.
Right, mighty, yeah. I think that this is probably at the precipice of being enough too much for Florida. They're a team that's it's the all for one for all attitude that they've had all playoff long. Us against the world, right? As you say, David Goliath. I think if they went much further, that would be a detriment to them. I think they're at the cusp of being okay. This is a team that plays with a lot of energy, a little freneticism. Well, more than a lot of freneticism. They love to create chaos in the own zone. It's good, simple hockey. Hard nose, get in. That F1, the forechecker, has been really effective at creating discombobulation for the defense and leading to turnovers galore in every series. They lead the league in goals scored within 5 seconds after a turnover in the playoffs. And it's not like 2, I don't remember the number. It's pretty significant. So they need that energy. They need it, because this is you're going to build back up. I think they're going to be okay. But this is, I would say, if you had to say, is there any advantage? I'd say it's a little probably advantage in that Vegas has had just enough time off. And now they're like, we're still in this routine, this rhythm. But Florida has done some things where they've practiced more than not practiced. There haven't been too many days off to keep them involved. I guess the proof on the proverbial pudding or whatever will be, Saturday night at 5:20 when they drop the puck.
And it's interesting, Billy, you mentioned the 2003 Ducks run and how that centered around, that made J.A. Giguère famous, right. More famous. You come to today, and Sergei Bobrovsky's having a pretty Giguère-like postseason. He's got a couple of Vezinas. We expected a little more from him, perhaps. But he's had such a great run in these playoffs. What do the Golden Knights need to do to maybe make him, I don't even know if less comfortable is the fair thing to say. He's been facing 50 shots a night. How do they poke a hole in Sergei Bobrovsky?
Well, his game has been really stout, understatement. The last series was awesome. I had the good fortune of, one of the assignments I have is doing rinkside for Sports USA, and oftentimes I've had 2 periods on his end where I'm on the glass and I'm watching him, and his ability to find pucks has been outstanding through traffic. His ability to rebound control has been awesome. He's not a huge goalie. He's not 6'3", 6'4". He's listed at 6'2", and I don't know, but he's close if he is. He's not one of those new age, behemoth 6'4", 225 guys. So he relies on his athleticism a lot. He gets very lower than other goalies. He brings his paddle down lower than guys. That's why he gets beat a lot on the blocker side. Yet the last round or two, he's been excellent there. So I think he's tweaked a little something in his set there. With all that said, it has to be traffic. If there's not enough traffic, at least to me. Now, this is a guy, again, who played a lot of hockey. Now he's had these 7, whatever it is, days off. I'm most curious to see if it affects him because of the role that he's been on has been outstanding. If you let him see the puck, there's a really good chance that he's really, going to stop it. I don't see pucks going through him, and I haven't seen it this playoffs. Now the Bruins early on, but I think he was partly rusty there. Mm-hmm. They put up 4, 5, 6 goals in one game,
and they started that series with Alex Lyon.
Yeah. So I mean, if they don't, cliche 101 for scoring goals, get guys in front of them. But you're going to need multiple guys. You got to buzz the tower, so to speak, and get some skates not in close to that crease. And I think you have to have layered attack. You have to have a mid, low mid, whatever you want to term it. And the other thing is, in the past, side to side for him, sometimes the book on him is that he has overplayed stuff and he's opened up on his movement. Some goalies stay tight. Other goalies, he'll look to make a real. One of the things that was to his detriment a couple of years ago, Brian, was how hard he would push going side to side, and he would almost overplay and open up. He seems to have shrunk that, brought that back in. But the only way you can test that is if you get him moving laterally.
Last one before we let you go, Billy. Again, it's a Stanley Cup final. Both teams should feel pretty good about themselves, but you have a Golden Knights team that's got here playing to their identity, and a Panthers team that has, again, beaten some big teams, but also taken care of business pretty quickly since the Boston series as well. So two teams that feel good about themselves. Is there any particular matchup or portion of the game that you really zone in on as being key for how this is going to turn out?
I have a few, but the number one thing is got to be the forwards of Florida's ability to not just get pucks in, but to really get to their. They love to change the point of attack using the back of the net. Even oftentimes it's a simple, real hard rim around from one side to the other, and then get after their forecheck. So the forwards' ability to do that against the really physically imposing, very structured Vegas defense. The Bruins' defense, on paper, was very good this year. They didn't play very well in the playoffs. They struggled with the Panthers' ability to create chaos, ability to create openings. Toronto's not as good. Even though those games were close, still Florida did their thing. Carolina has a good defense. They do, but they're not as physical as Vegas's defense. And good size, though. I don't know pound for pound, exact same thing, but the sheer size and the ability for this Vegas defense to play like they can, I think that could be a mega matchup to determine who wins the series. Florida forward, Vegas D.
Billy Jaffe, Sports USA and NHL Network. Really appreciate you sitting down with us, and we'll be tuned in all week.
Always good to meet I wasn't a Long Islander native, but a fellow Long Islander as well for a couple of years.
I'm sure we have burgers in the same place. We'll exchange notes. Yeah.
Yes. Bagels too. Yes, bagels too.
Thank you, Billy. Yep. Let's head back to Justin Russo.
Thanks to Brian and Billy for breaking things down ahead of Game 1. Before we leave, I'm going to add some more context for you, as well as let you listen in on what some of the Golden Knights had to say during yesterday's media day. For this series, of course, with teams being in opposite conferences, we have a bit less to draw on as we head into the final than we did for the previous ones. These two teams played only twice this season, with each taking a victory on home ice. The first came on January 12th in Vegas, where the Knights took a 4-2 victory, and interestingly, it was the same goalie matchup that we'll have for the final, as Adin Hill stopped 37 of 39 shots and outdueled Sergei Bobrovsky in the team's first matchup of the season. The second game came on March 7th, where the Panthers took a narrow 2-1 victory on home ice on goals from Ryan Lundberg and Alexander Barkov. You may remember this game a bit more because it was the last game Adin Hill played in the regular season. Despite a strong performance, Hill sustained a lower body injury that left him sidelined until the second round of the postseason, when he eventually took over for Laurent Brossoit after his injury. So, at the very least, Adin Hill, with getting that game in, has 2 games against the Florida Panthers this year, and you talk about the carousel of goaltenders that the Vegas Golden Knights had. It's pretty impressive that the same goaltender that we're going to have for the final, Adin Hill, actually played in both of the games against the Panthers this season. Now, I could jump into a bunch of stats about those games, but not only is the sample size of 2 games simply just too small, these teams have changed so much since they last played that you kind of have to throw the book out and just focus on what's ahead in this final. Vegas was still building their game in the midst of their strong late season push, while Florida was looking just for some consistency and fighting for their playoff lives. So much has changed since March 7th, so let's just look ahead to tonight and see what lies ahead for this Stanley Cup Final. There was a lot said by the VGK in terms of their thoughts heading into this series and heading into Game 1 specifically, so let's start with Mark Stone and Aiden Hill to get their thoughts on playing the Florida Panthers.
I mean, they're clearly playing the best hockey of their season, right? And they're playing at the right time. They got good depth at forward, defense, and their goaltender's playing great. So, but we're playing good too. We like the way we're playing. I mean, it's different, right? We played Edmonton a bunch. You knew them, you knew Dallas, so it's a little different. But yeah, they got some high-end talent. They got some guys who work, and their goaltender's playing really well.
Do any of the tendencies of the Panthers remind you of teams that you have faced, maybe a little more frequently this season?
God, I'm not really focusing on the other 31 teams or 30 teams. Hard for me to say to compare them to another team. I think they're a lot different than the teams we've played so far. So, these last couple of days have been important for us.
What makes them different?
I think they're a pretty aggressive team. You look at their defense; they're up in the rush. They forecheck hard. They're three men in on a forecheck. They're deep pinch. They do a lot of that stuff to try and disrupt your opponents, and so we're gonna have to be pretty good with our execution to manage that.
Yeah, I think it's just playing our game. I mean, no matter what team we play against in this league. I mean, Florida, obviously they're hot right now. They've knocked off 3 of the top 4 teams in the league to get here. So they're a good hockey team, but I think if we just focus on our game and I think we have a lot of depth in our lineup. So we just roll 4 lines, play our game. I don't think if we play our best, any team in this league can beat us.
Aiden Hill confident in his squad with just 4 wins separating them from a Stanley Cup and looking to get that first Stanley Cup in Vegas Golden Knights history. But the guy in the other crease is not going to make this easy. Sergei Bobrovsky is playing the best hockey, really, of his career, and he's been one of the driving forces behind Florida getting to this spot. Now, we could sit here and talk about how to get traffic in front of Bobrovsky and try to get him off his game, which some of the Golden Knights alluded to, but instead, I just want to leave you with this answer that I got from William Carrier when I asked him about how he plans on getting to Sergei Bobrovsky.
Personally, I don't really know where I shoot, so I just put it on net and he goes in and out, so I have it, right? So hopefully Jack and these guys that actually aim are actually planning on something.
Well, I hope Jack will figure out something on Sergei Bobrovsky then, if William Carrier is simply going to be blindly shooting toward him, but working out pretty well so far this season for Will Carrier. 16 goals in the regular season, another 2 in the postseason, including one in Game 6, the clinching Game 6 for the Vegas Golden Knights to help them win the Western Conference. Shifting gears now from Sergei Bobrovsky to a couple of the forwards that have been driving things for the Florida Panthers. You look at Matthew Tkachuk and Alexander Barkov. Those 2 guys are the superstar forwards on this Florida Panthers team. And to give you a good idea on how those guys operate, I'm going to let you listen in on to what Florida Panthers head coach Paul Maurice had to say on his 2 star players.
Obviously, Matthew's a loud personality on the ice. What's he like? Do you have any stories about him, interactions through this year that you guys have had a lot of tough moments?
He's the exact opposite off the ice. So the first week he's here, he takes all the trainers out. Every interaction, I'm going to talk to him. So I'm still learning about him as a player early on. It's always the same answer, actually, between him and Barkov. I don't care who I play with. I love playing with that guy. I love playing with that guy. I love playing with that guy. So when he and Barkov get together on the ice, it's pretty good, as you would expect, right? And they haven't played enough together to fully get some sort of chemistry going. But they both understand we are a far more powerful team if they don't play together. And they're happy with that. Like, they love playing with Sasha Barkov says, I'll play with anybody, and he means it, which is very unusual. But Matthew has a sense of what each guy can do, and he has the ability to tailor his game to those different people. You think of all the different, extremely different left wingers. Right? Verhaeghe's played left wing there, completely different game than Luosterainen, who's been very good there, and then Cousins. He has the ability to kind of, bit of a chameleon on the ice. Except he ends up net front anyway at the end, but he has the ability to adapt to different people very, very well.
Some high praise from Florida Panthers head coach Paul Maurice on Matthew Tkachuk and Alexander Barkov, 2 of the guys that make things happen up front for this Florida Panthers team. And I think listening to what Paul Maurice was saying about those two guys, you can start to find some similarities between how the Golden Knights operate and the Florida Panthers, not only in terms of on the ice, and we talked about, rolling four lines, the depth that they have, the goaltending that they have, but you look at the people-first mentality and how these teams are just built on having good people that get along, fun rooms. These guys can keep it light. They're friends off the ice. That chemistry and that sincerity, I think, goes a long way in some of these playoff runs and just building organizations the right way. And it's no coincidence that both the Golden Knights and the Panthers find themselves in this position given the people that they have put on their teams, on their staff, and overall around their entire organization. So I hope that sets you up for Game 1 tonight between the Vegas Golden Knights and the Florida Panthers. Again, both teams looking to capture their first ever Stanley Cup in their second ever Stanley Cup Final appearance. Golden Knights at home for the first couple of games, looking to keep that home ice advantage that they've had against the Florida Panthers, who have never won at T-Mobile Arena. 0-4-1 all time are the Panthers in the Fortress. So we'll see if the Golden Knights can keep that trend going tonight with a big victory in Game 1. As a reminder as well, Marshmello will be performing at 2:45 on Toshiba Plaza. All the activations begin at 2 p.m., so come down early, have a lot of fun on Toshiba Plaza. And even if you don't have a ticket to the game, again, there will be a watch party for Game 1 right outside of T-Mobile Arena on the plaza. So stay, watch the game, and have fun with your fellow VGK fans. I'll take a moment now to remind you to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss a moment of the team's quest for the Stanley Cup right here on VGK Today. Tomorrow we have a recap of Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Final between the Golden Knights and the Panthers. Justin Russo signing off for episode 48 of VGK Today, presented by MGM Rewards.